and this one's for 6/3/2025. And I'd like to, as always, thank Ron Kennedy and Scott Pollia for their telemetry and for Ron's video this time, which is actually what we're looking at. I'd also like to take the time to thank Ron for suggesting editing gauges. So I cleaned up the default gauges a little bit. So now we have your 3-second power and your 30-second power in the same frame, which I think is a little cleaner. I'll be playing with gauges and doing that over the next couple of weeks, but for now I think this looks pretty good. Now you see Ron's camera up in the upper right, and you see my view looking at our small but distinguished crew. Heading into the sprint zone, everyone's somewhat relaxed. We didn't have a lot of hard chargers today, so it kept everything pretty civil. There was threat of rain, and it is only the hardcore, those of stature and note and perhaps craziness, that make it out on days like today. But I'm good with it. And time to party. Heading up to the sprint zone, and I'm in the back now, and I do not want to be back here because it's dangerous to be back here. Too many people just want to ride coattails, and it costs a lot of energy. So I'm going to slide up to the front. Got Ron in tow following me, a wise maneuver here because we don't want to be caught in the rears. We got Daniel here. It looks like he's talking to the team car. He's probably working on his arm warmers, but it looked kind of cool that he was like, okay, what should I do here? Scott's going off the front. And we got a good shot of him. And like I've always said, if at some point in any of my videos you do not get a label, you will be deemed an NPC. So you have to watch over the weeks and see who doesn't get themselves at least a mention with a tag. Up front, Scott looking strong here, and I'm behind Scott. I don't want to be here. My power meter at this point is not working. I've got those watt team ones, and it's not reading correctly. So I know I'm putting out a lot more watts than what it actually shows. Scott up in the 350s for instantaneous and 30-second 300. So he was putting out a lot of power up there. And I was thinking, I do not want to be here just yet. And it could be, maybe Scott does not know how strong he really is. But when you have that little upgrade there and you're pushing that kind of wattage, that's going to soften people up. And I'm thinking to myself, I am worried about having to take over after this pull. Maybe after we crest the hill, I can fake it, because at least it'll be like, keep the speed up. We're going down. Scott pulls off, and notice no wiggle of the elbow. Not necessary, but this will come into mention later on. Daniel coming through, looking good. And everybody's in tow. Like my heart rate, 165, that I do believe is correct. So I'm working hard at this point, not super hard. Scott's at 152, and then we got Ron's at 134. Everybody in tow. No selection has been made as of yet. At this point, I'm like, okay, I was number 2 up that little hill. And for those of you who know, the further back you are in the line, the better the draft. So honestly, the draft is really not that good in position number 2. And I'm just trying to recover here. Heart rate going up a little bit, 165, 166. And here comes Steve. Notice he does have a label. So he's definitely not an NPC as I slide back through the peloton. Short list today, and I'm happy that this is a shorter group here, because sometimes you get a lot of strongmen and they make the attack while I'm coming off. So you're sliding back, waiting for people to come in there, trying to recover a little bit, sort of like doing over-unders. And to get back, the speed differential is so high. And then you get caught behind people that are riding above their station. But in this case, small little group, and I am nicely tacked on to the back here. Everybody's pretty well behaved. No one is thinking about doing anything yet. And without any supers here, I'm not too concerned about getting caught too far in arrears. Although Scott is here, and although he is not quite a super, he is definitely holding his own. And over the past weekend, well, the future weekend from when this is made, Scott gets himself a nice little podium. First place. So I think in every race Scott has done, he has podiumed. And it's his first year of racing, so most impressive. So there's definitely pedigree here. And of course, we got Ron Kennedy also in the breakaway kit. He, over the past weekend, which is really the future from this one, on the 7th, got himself a nice little podium, I believe, at the Dead Sweet Gravel with the 2nd place. Very nice. And I think Isla, who was back in there, also got a podium, 1st place in her age group at the Dead Swede. So there are people here that have, what can I say, pedigree, so to speak. Anyway, I digress. So I'm hanging on. My heart rate dropped a little bit down to 164. Looks like my power meters may have come online because this almost looks like it's correct, but one never knows. It looked a little wonky. Maybe there's electrical interference or some such. I don't know. Anyway, tacked on the back nicely. People are working hard up front. No one is rotating just yet. And I guess it's because people just want to see what they can do out there. It's a bit, a ways out before the actual sprint. So it's good that people are able to exude themselves now a little bit in hopes to recover. Coming off the front, it looks like it is Mr. Polya again, slowly sliding back. And it looks like the speed down to 18. Slight headwind. I'm not certain the folks want to work hard up there, but I'm okay with it because it gives me a chance to recover. And we can see that is what's happening after my heart rate goes down to 157 at one point. Now I believe Tony is up front. And I can look in Ron's camera and say, yep, Danny's covering that one. And Tony always drives pretty hard. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I need to save a little bit of something for this little grade. And I don't want to be caught back too far here. But at least the group is small, so I won't be back too far. But if someone makes a jump on this one, it could be game over if I'm too far back. Anyway, you can always count on Tony to drive hard. He's not totally tactical on this one. He can use like brute strength to actually drop people, and that's a good thing. Tactics are interesting, when someone sits in it and then just attacks. But in this one, no one is going for it. And it must be that it's hard enough that nobody really wants to. And maybe the little move by Tony was to maybe soften Scott up as he was drifting back. Because there's nothing better than to like soften people up. Looking at the Ron camera, looks like Ron is going to take up maybe 2nd spot. I'm not certain. Oh, it looks like Danny had a slight little gap open up on Tony, but he's back on the stick. And everyone is together. No selection has been made at this point. My heart rate back up to 168, and it's a very slight headwind. There's Tony comes off very nicely, little wiggle of the elbow, and everybody is still on earnest. They're on point, ramming in the thump and having a good time. Looking at Ron's camera up there, you can see Danny doing work. And you don't see Danny doing a lot of work when the supers are here, but when a small group, you can't hide. And that's a good thing. People need to actually own it. Otherwise, it just turns into like a snoozer. But Danny's looking good up there. And Ron, his wattage is pretty high, sitting on Danny's wheel. Rearward there, it looks like Tony comes off. Daniel's behind me. Looks like they have nicely recovered and tacked back on. Ron coming to the front here, and let's see what kind of wattage he's throwing out. Looks like the low 300s as he begins to drag the field up through the last mile or so, maybe almost a mile and a half of the sprint zone. Danny coming off, looking for a nice little slot in the back there. So I am making my way slowly towards the front. Steve right in front of me, Scott right in front of me, Ron up there. So I am in the perfect position. Big man in front of me, and they're larger than I am, which is nice because I get a sweet draft. Heart rate 168, which is not too bad. Better than the 170s. So it could be that after the whole COVID thing, my heart rate is starting to normalize. And those 8 beats that I lost. Ron's power, 400 watts for a second there. And okay, now Ron's moving all over the place at this point. So I'm looking and I'm thinking, okay, Scott at some point should go around, but it's good here. It's good here. Ron's starting to drop power a little bit. Down to 1, and you see how Scott kind of follows him here. It's like, dude, you should have just followed your line and like taken over for Ron. You see he dropped his power, and there's conversation up here, and I had a conversation with Scott about it, and Scott's like, oh, you want me to go by? And it's like, well, you didn't wiggle your elbow. It's like, at this level, when someone changes their line and drops their power, that is your clue to take over. you shouldn't be like a pilot fish underneath a shark. And of course, Scott knows I'm going to say this. And we had this little conversation up the sprint zone number 2, where Ron was doing a lot of work. In any case, Ron has recovered, or barely recovered. You can see he's breathing hard, but you can see that. The work on his face. Yeah, that is somebody digging deep. And you can see the wattage here. It's like 350. Yes, you can see my power is like totally off. Because if Ron is like, pushing like 100 more watts than I am, that would not be the case. But my power is definitely off. Anyway, my heart rate's finally up to 171, where it should normally be. And at this point, I'm getting a little impatient. I mean, Scott's strong and everything, but I'm not going to wait till the end to like try to like just snipe him. I need to get some work here. I need to push the pace a little bit, get some work in, because, my forte is a short, maybe 15-second sprint, but I don't like doing that because that's not what normally happens. I need to work on my 30-second, 1-minute power, which is why I need to go. And there we go. Here I am after sitting in. It's my turn to try to go around. I think Steve sat on Scott a little too long, but maybe he just didn't have the power to do it. And I was not feeling great today. And yeah, it looks like Scott, even at the front, still no one can go around him. Most impressive, and I have given my effort for the day. Everybody pretty much worked hard. Well, there was only one person in this group that did not see the front, and that is okay. It'll be an exercise for the viewer to see who that was. But of course, he's like a newer rider with the group and perhaps has not, is still observing the culture. But in a couple of weeks, we'll expect everybody to do their part if they can. I know a lot of people, it's a big deal. I need to hang on. I hung on the sprint zone with the TFR. Look how great I am. And I used to be there, in the ancient days when I would do TTH for the 1 or 2 times that I actually finished, and only after a couple of stoplights let us catch back up. I was like, okay, I did it. I never got to the point where I was able to really contribute that much on TTH, but I understand the feeling of my goal here is just to hang on and I can't contribute. It's different if you can contribute. In any case, that was fun. A good time, I think, was had by all. And we'll see how things go next week. I think the gauges, I like the cleaner gauges. I may have to make those more permanent. In any case, thanks for that suggestion, Ron. Thanks for your camera and telemetry. And to all, a good night. Peace out, everyone. Till next time.